On the May 4th ballot, Wayne residents In an effort to try to help balance their budget, the City of Wayne has called a special election for May 4th. On the ballot will be two proposals that, if passed, will help the city offset their current $3.5 million budget deficit.
The State of Michigan Constitution requires all local governments, all county governments, etc., township governments to have a balanced budget. And so you're not allowed to deficit spend. The current budget is about $19.3 million. However, and that's the budget from July of 2009 till June of 2010. The next budget, the budget we're working on right now, however, is going to be about $16 million. About $3.5 million less than the year we're in. And that's what we're struggling with in terms of, having to try to figure out what services we can continue to include in the budget and which we just can't afford any longer.
Unfortunately, with the economic conditions here, not only in the city of Wayne, but the state of Michigan and nationally, we've really had three different things that have affected our budget very profoundly. The first one would be the reduction in the property values that we've seen across the state of Michigan. We've seen a 30% decline here in the city of Wayne. That has, of course, increased, or decreased rather, our taxes that we bring in for property taxes. That's decreased those significantly. Secondly, we were also affected by the state shared revenues. Our state shared revenues have been decreased. And then thirdly, I'm sure most people probably understand the condition out at the Ford Motor Company. We saw the operations at the truck plant be moved out of the city of Wayne and down to Kentucky. So that has also decreased the amount of taxes that we bring in from the corporations here in the city.
That decision by Ford immediately affected us in the amount of about a 25% reduction in our tax base. So just imagine any family or any business that all of a sudden loses 25% of its revenue. And we've been dealing with that now since 2008.
As you know, we also saw a decline in our budget last year. So we made cuts last year as well to our budget. We've had to make some tough choices with reducing our personnel and with reducing our services. And when we made those decisions last year, we really tried to avoid making any personnel cuts to police and fire. But this year, that situation is going to be extremely difficult to continue that trend. And I would have to say that we're probably going to have to look at every single department.
We're victim of the economy. All what we've been doing is to be ready. When the economy change, we could move with it. But if we're gonna sit and do nothing, and the economy change and go in a positive direction, and we're not ready to go with it, we will be left behind.
On the May 4th ballot, Wayne residents will be asked to vote on two proposals.
On May 4th, they're going to see two proposals. Proposal number one is going to be for the a $1 million increase for police and fire. Those funds can only be used specifically to support our police and fire departments. Proposal number two is going to be the Headley override. And what that does is it will restore the city's millage rate back to the original 15 that we had agreed upon with our city charter and with the Constitution of the State of Michigan.
If Proposal 1 and 2 pass, it will help offset the budget deficit, but there still will be $2 million that the City Council will have to cut from the current budget.
If Proposals 1 and 2 are approved, they would begin in July of this year. July 1st would be when they would take effect.
Proposal 1 will bring in $550,000, and Proposal 2 would bring in $255,000.
We're hoping that we can work out with all the employee groups a 5% wage reduction and then a 2-year freeze. 2 of the bargaining groups so far have agreed to it. 2 others are going to be voting on it soon, and we're hopeful that by the time the election takes place in early May, that all 8 groups will have agreed to it.
Proposal 1 will help maintain police and fire services in the City of Wayne.
Primarily, we provide road patrol services, responding to day-to-day emergencies, responding to calls for service. If you had a bicycle stolen or neighbor trouble, we're going to respond to those. That's our primary function at this point. We also provide emergency service dispatching, which is the hub of all emergency services in the community. Our dispatching center is housed at the police department, but although it's in the police department, we're responsible for all the calls for service, sending all the fire trucks to fires, paramedics, things of that nature. Our department averages about 30,000 calls for service each year. That all originates from the police department. Our calls for service have remained consistent for the past several years. 30,000 has been the norm for our police department over the last 5-6 years. We have an officer assigned to the high school as a school resource officer. He's there primarily as a community policing element of our department. With situations have happened in schools throughout the country, we've worked very closely with Wayne Westland in trying to keep our students and our children safe in the schools. So we have a school officer, and in addition to that, we still have a canine officer. He's assigned to our shifts, and his primary function is tracking of suspects or narcotics detection. Our department is primarily personnel oriented. It's approximately 87% of our overall budget is associated to salaries, overtime, and benefits. So we do not have a lot of fat in our budget. The remaining portion of our budget goes towards utility costs, fuel costs for our patrol cars, insurance costs. So there really wasn't much to cut from our department, and that's why we're seeing the reduction in staffing. Since 2006, we've seen a reduction in our sworn police staff from 43 to 34. With those reductions, we've seen a reduction in our proactive arm of our department, which is basically the sword, so to speak, of our department. Programs such as our cop crew unit, which is the crime-oriented policing crime reduction unit, have had to be eliminated. This is our undercover unit, plainclothes street enforcement team that primarily does narcotics, prostitution enforcement, things that a uniform patrol division cannot handle on a day-to-day basis. That has had to be eliminated due to these cuts. We've also seen a cut in our traffic enforcement officer's position, our traffic officer's position, our community-oriented policing officer's position. We are potentially facing more cuts. That's going to be the council's ultimate decision. At this point, we have seen 5 reductions this year. Prior to the coming year, we did that in hopes to reduce the impact from our department. Unfortunately, those 5 that we've lost that proactive part of our department. Any additional cuts will come basically from the bone. It will be from our patrol division.
We provide fire and rescue operations. We're paramedics. We provide 2 ALS units for the community in response. We provide fire and medical education. And we also provide hazardous material response and urban search and rescue type response. It's going to have a big impact on our department. We're looking at a $3.5 million deficit over the citywide. We're looking at potentially losing 3 to 6 people, and that's going to affect us on the way we do our fire and emergency operations, being able to provide a second rescue or a backup engine or ladder truck response with our responses. Last year we had 2,630 runs for emergency calls last year, and that trend keeps going up every year. And we expect the runs to go up because of less medical insurance and people without jobs. Their first response is to go to the emergency room, and we're that response to take them there. Right now we currently run with Westland, Inkster, and Garden City. The 4 communities run an auto aid program, which is on top of our mutual aid program. So we have guys firemen respond from the other communities when we have fires within the community automatically, so we get more manpower into the areas, and we do the same back to them, back and forth. That'll help us tremendously. It'll help. I don't think it'll stop everything, but it'll lessen the impact of services that we will not be able to provide. We're probably still going to see some cutbacks depending on City Council's decisions, but that budget will help to lessen that impact and maintain a pretty good service for the community.
Proposal 1 and 2 will not erase the deficit, but it will help lessen the impact to reduction of city services.
These aren't silver bullets. These aren't going to be, if we see these two proposals pass, all of our problems are solved and we don't have anything to worry about. We're still going to have some significant reductions to make in our budget. Those are going to be tough choices to make. And I would have to say, I feel pretty confident in saying that we're going to see reductions in every department across the board. What we can do by passing these two proposals is we can really lessen the severity of those cuts that we're going to be looking to make. My job on City Council is really to maintain the level of services that we have as best as we can. And personally, I'd like to try to save as many jobs as I can in the City of Wayne. So by having these two ballot proposals passed, we can save as many jobs as we can, and we can keep as many services at the current level that we have.
The big question on everyone's mind is, if Proposal 1 and 2 are passed, what will it cost the average taxpayer?
Everybody just got from the city recently the notice that told them what their taxable value is on their home. And so, using a couple of examples, if you have a $40,000 taxable value, it'll cost you about $58 for the first year for 5 years. And that breaks down to roughly $4.80 per month. If you have a $60,000 taxable value, it'll cost you about $88 a year for 5 years, and that breaks down to about $7.30 a month. If your taxable value is about $80,000, it'd be about $116 per year for 5 years, or about $9.65 per month.
But I know that any increase in taxes right now is difficult for people. We've all seen, myself personally, I've seen wage freezes in my job. I know that people are unemployed. But to ask citizens to get together as a community and to come together and help the city out through this budget crisis, it's an incremental amount that I think people will be able to find is going to be workable in their budgets. I know that personally I've seen a decline in my taxes over the last 2 years. Unfortunately, that's tied to the falling value of my home. But I've seen a significant value or a significant amount of my taxes go down, and that's happened across the city. So we're asking that if citizens would approve it, that they would give some of that money back to the city to help us out through these troubles.
So the citizens of Wayne have a strong responsibility to help us and assist us and give us that helping hand to keep moving the city forward. Very simple. And the city of Wayne, I'm very confident, the people in our town well informed. They know their municipality, they know how we function. I feel we well connected with the public, and I hope they will come to the rescue at this time to help the municipality.
Please vote on May 4th. For more information on Proposal 1 and 2, call City Hall at 734-722-2000. There will also be 3 public town hall meetings to answer residents' questions about Proposal 1 and 2. They are at 7 p.m. on April 8th at the Wayne Public Library, 7 p.m. on April 12th at the Wayne Community Center, and 7 p.m. on April 21st at the Wayne Activity and Banquet Center, or the former Senior Activity Center. Please join us to have all of your questions answered.